If you are an African in the diaspora, this message is for you. You've thought about investing back home, maybe not seriously, but the idea keeps returning. Every headline tells you Africa is risky. Very few explain where opportunity is quietly forming. This video is not about fear, it is about preparation. There is a specific assumption about wealth in our communities that has destroyed more capital than scams ever could. It is the assumption that buying land or building a house is always the safest place for your money. It is the belief that real estate never fails. But it does fail, and when it fails in our markets, it does not usually crash loudly. It simply freezes. Today, we are going to walk through why real estate projects fail for the diaspora and how to ensure yours does not. Let us look at what you likely believe right now. You look at the skyline of Lagos, Nairobi, Accra, or Addis Ababa. You see cranes, you see development. You hear stories of people who bought plots 10 years ago and sold them for 10 times the price. The logical conclusion is simple. If I buy land, I am safe. If I build, I am growing wealth. But here's what is actually happening. Thousands of diasporans are currently holding assets that look valuable on paper but are worthless in practice. They own properties they cannot sell. They own buildings that consume cash rather than generate it. They own legal titles that are being quietly contested in courts they do not have the time to visit. In this video, we are going to dismantle the real estate default setting. We will look at the specific traps regarding land tenure. We will look at the myth of cash flow in high inflation environments. By the end of this discussion, you will have a framework to distinguish between a vanity project and a viable investment. You will learn to see real estate not as a trophy, but as a business that requires cold, hard logic. I understand why real estate is your first instinct. It is deeply emotional. When you leave home, there is a profound sense of displacement. Owning a piece of the soil feels like a cure for that displacement. It is proof that you belong. It is proof that you have succeeded abroad. There is also the pressure. Family members call you. They tell you about a plot for sale in the village or the outskirts of the city. They say, brother, if you don't buy this now, you will never afford it. They appeal to your fear of being priced out of your own country. And then there is the trust issue. You do not trust the stock market back home. It feels opaque. You do not trust starting a small business remotely. You cannot manage the staff. But a plot of land, a house, it is physical. You can touch it. You can see it. It feels like it cannot be stolen or erased by a bank failure. So you feel stuck. You feel that if you do not act, you are losing ground. But if you do act, you are terrified of sending money into a black hole. Let me tell you this clearly. Your hesitation is not weakness, it is intelligence. The fear you feel is your instinct telling you that you are about to make a complex business decision based on emotion rather than data. The problem is not that you want to own land. The problem is that you are treating a complex, high-risk development project as if it were a simple savings account. It is not. Let us remove the emotion and look at the market reality in key African economies today. We are seeing a massive divergence in the real estate sector. On one side, there is high demand for affordable, functional housing in urban centers where jobs exist. On the other side, there is a surplus of luxury builds and speculative plots in areas with no infrastructure. Construction costs are not what they were 5 years ago. Inflation in materials, cement, steel, finishing has skyrocketed. A project you budgeted for today based on 2020 numbers will run out of cash halfway through. Many diasporans are stuck with half-finished carcasses of buildings because they calculated the cost of land but underestimated the inflation of construction. Then there is the legal reality. Land tenure systems in many of our markets are undergoing stress tests. Governments are digitizing records, which is good, but it is exposing decades of fraud. Multiple sales of the same land are common. Family land disputes where one family member sells without the consent of the others are clogging the courts. Furthermore, we are in a high-interest rate environment globally and locally. If you are borrowing money in the West to build in Africa, the cost of that capital is higher. If you are using local financing, rates can be 20 to 30%. This means the buy and hold strategy is expensive. Holding land is not free. You have security costs, you have maintenance, you have taxes. And if that land is not generating income, it is slowly eating your wealth even if the nominal price goes up.
Information alone won't save you here. You need to understand the mechanics of value.
Let me tell you a story. It is a composite of many people I have spoken to, but let's call him Samuel. Samuel is a diligent professional living in London. He saved £30,000 over 3 years. He wanted to invest in Nigeria. His uncle told him about a developing area outside the city. The next big thing, he said. The land was cheap. Samuel bought 4 plots. He felt proud. He was a landowner. 2 years later, Samuel decided to build a block of 4 flats. He thought, I will rent them out and the passive income will pay for my retirement. He sent money home periodically. The project took 4 years instead of 2. The costs doubled because of inflation and some leakage of funds through family oversight. Finally, the building was done. Samuel put the flats on the market for rent. But he realized something too late. The area was developing, yes, but it had no reliable road. The power grid hadn't reached there yet. The only people who wanted to live there were low-income workers who could not afford the rent Samuel needed to charge to break even. He tried to sell the building, but in that area, there was no secondary market. Rich people didn't want to live there. Poor people couldn't buy there. Investors didn't want it because the yield was too low. Samuel is still holding that property today. He pays a watchman to guard it. He pays for repairs as the empty house deteriorates in the rainy season. On paper, he has an asset worth millions of naira. In reality, he has £80,000 trapped in concrete that he cannot access. He didn't lose his money to a scammer. He lost his money to a lack of market fit. He built a product nobody wanted in a place nobody could afford. How do you avoid becoming Samuel? You need to stop thinking like a homeowner and start thinking like a developer. Here's the framework, the 3 checks of real estate. 1. The legal check, the foundation. Never rely on a search conducted by the seller or your family. You must hire an independent surveyor and a lawyer who answers only to you. They must check the ministry records, but they must also visit the site. They must talk to the neighbors. Who actually farms on that land? Is there a shrine on the land? Is there a family dispute? Paperwork in Africa often lags behind reality. The physical check is as important as the digital one. 2. The utility check, the income. Ask yourself, who is the tenant? Be specific. Is it a banker, a trader, a student? Does that person exist in this specific neighborhood? Can they afford the rent you need to make profit? If you cannot identify the specific human being who will pay you, do not build. Hope is not a business plan. 3. The liquidity check, the exit. This is the most important one. If you had to sell this property in 90 days, could you? Is there a market of buyers? In prime city centers, yes. In the village, usually, no. In the remote outskirts, often, no. Real estate is an illiquid asset. Do not make it permanent by building where there is no market velocity. Structure must come before action. I want to pause here for a moment. I know this might be uncomfortable to hear. You might be midway through a project right now. You might be looking at a title deed in your drawer, wondering if it's truly secure. That discomfort is good. It means you are engaging with the reality of your money. I invite you to comment below, not with personal details, but with your observation. Have you seen projects back home that sit empty for years? What do you think is the main reason? Is it price, location, or legal issues? Let's discuss what you are seeing on the ground. Now, let's move to structured guidance. If you are going to invest in real estate, here is how you manage the risk. What not to do. Do not build the biggest house in the village. This is a vanity metric. A mansion in a village has 0 economic value. It is a liability. If you build it for your retirement enjoyment, that is fine. That is consumption. But never call it an investment. It is an expense. Do not start a project without 100% of the capital ready. Do not rely on future savings to finish a building. If you stop building for 6 months, the weather will destroy your work. Materials will get stolen. Squatters may move in. Speed preserves capital.
Do not manage remotely through unqualified family. Your cousin is not a project manager. Your uncle is not a quantity surveyor. Mixing family obligations and contract enforcement is a recipe for broken relationships and lost money. What to do? Do focus on boring rentals, affordable, small units in high-density areas near transport hubs, studio apartments, one-bedroom flats. This is where the demand is. It is not glamorous, but it pays. Do use a phased approach. Buy the land, secure the perimeter, wait. Do not rush to build. See how the area develops. Let others make the mistake of building too early. When the road comes, then you build. Do consider paper real estate. Real estate investment trusts or REITs exist in Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa. They allow you to invest in commercial properties managed by professionals. You get the exposure to real estate without the headache of cement and land guards. It is liquid. You can sell your shares tomorrow. Here is the key insight I mentioned at the start. This is the piece that changes how you view your entire portfolio. Real estate in Africa is often a capital trap masquerading as an investment vehicle. In the West, we are taught that real estate is the ultimate store of value because markets are mature and leverage or mortgages is cheap. In Africa, real estate is a capital sink. When you bury £100,000 in a house that yields 3% a year in rental income while government bonds are paying 15% or inflation is 20%, you are losing wealth every single day. The mindset shift is this: liquidity is king. The true risk in Africa is not just losing money, it is having your money trapped. A business can pivot, stocks can be sold, a concrete building is stuck. You must stop measuring your wealth by the number of plots you own. You must measure your wealth by the velocity of your money. How fast does it return to you? If you are buying land, you are a speculator. If you are building to rent, you are a business owner. If you are building to live, you are a consumer. Know which one you are. Most people think they are investors, but they are actually consumers buying expensive concrete boxes they will rarely visit. Do not let nostalgia dictate your financial strategy. The soil is sacred, yes, but your capital is a tool. Do not blunt that tool by burying it in the wrong place. We build because we want to leave a legacy. We want to point to a structure and say, I did that. That is a noble desire. But a true legacy is a resource that takes care of your family, not a burden they have to maintain. Be critical. Be cold in your analysis. Be warm in your intent. Invest where the numbers work, not just where your heart is. If you found clarity in this message, I invite you to subscribe. We are building a community of thinkers who look at Africa not through rose-colored glasses, not through fear, but through strategy. Consider watching the next video on currency risk. It pairs perfectly with what we just discussed. Thank you for your time.